It's that time of the year and we're already gearing up for the election on November 5th. And if you're looking for a way to get involved beyond filling out your ballot, then consider becoming an election judge in Chicago. Election judges are paid to manage polling places and help voters. You can earn anywhere from $170 to $230 for your service. You must be a U.S. citizen and a registered voter in Cook County. And if you also speak Spanish, Hindi, Polish, Korean, Tagalog, or Chinese dialect, then the Chicago Board of Elections definitely needs your help. Head to pollworker.chicagoelections.gov to learn more and apply.
At the heart of Chicago, there's Navy Pier. It's a place where the Centennial Ferris wheel gives views for days. It's where boat tours take off and where the music is always on. It's where you can spin around on rides, share around with friends, and taste every flavor Chicago has to offer. This is Navy Pier, and this is what it's made for. Plan your visit at NavyPier.org.
Stick around to the end when executive producer Simone Alicea keeps things going with a conversation sponsored by the Chicago Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events with event production director Neil Heights. Today on CityCast Chicago. September literally just started and I'm already seeing pumpkin spice offerings at the farmers markets, the coffee shops, and the bakeries. It reminds me of last fall when I sat down to talk with executive producer Simone Alicea about this whole pumpkin spice craze. And I found out that Illinois may be a huge reason it's a craze in the first place. It's Wednesday, September 4th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. In this episode, we talk about a few of the pumpkin spice offerings Chicago had last fall. You can subscribe to our newsletter, Hey Chicago, to keep up to date on the latest pumpkin spice goods and other fall treats. You can do that at chicago.citycast.fm. Simone, I got to start here. Are you a pumpkin spice fan?
Yeah, absolutely. I love pumpkin spice, actually. I think it's cozy. I pretty much love all things squash in general, no matter how it's prepared. I think it smells good. I think it's great. Jacoby, what about you? Are you a pumpkin spice fan?
Honestly, no, I'm more of a scary spice fan myself. No, for real, there's this great bit from Bernie Mac, and I won't go through the whole thing, but he ends it with basically being like, I ain't never had no pumpkin pie. And that's the same with me. I've actually never really tried pumpkin flavored things. It's always been more decorative to me. I've carved more pumpkins than I've actually eaten in my life.
Really?
Yes.
That's so interesting, especially because you grew up here. And like we said, Illinois is the country's largest producer of pumpkins. And so before we get into some of the things that we tried, I want to ask you a little piece of pumpkin trivia. Can you tell me roughly how many acres of pumpkin were harvested in Illinois in 2021? I'm going to give you some choices.
Okay.
A, roughly 2,000 acres. B, roughly 6,000 acres. Or C, roughly 16,000 acres.
Ooh. I'm not even gonna lie to you. My first answer, if you didn't give me multiple choice, I was gonna say 725 with hella confidence. And then your first choice was thousands. I'm gonna go with the middle one. I'm a middle person. I'm gonna take the middle. What was that, 6 or 7?
Yeah, 6,000 acres. You would have been correct around the year 2000. But in 2021, Illinois produced nearly 16,000 acres of pumpkins. So just to give you a sense of how much space that takes up.
I was going to say, can you give me an equivalent?
Yes, kind of. I can tell you that's roughly 10% of the entire city of Chicago. So that would be like, it would be like Rogers Park and Edgewater and Uptown, and West Rogers Park, and Lincoln Square. That's kind of like what we're talking, 10% of the city of Chicago. One huge pumpkin field. Would be one huge pumpkin field, yeah.
Where are pumpkins largely harvested in Illinois? Is it central, southern, where at?
Largely in central Illinois, they're harvested, and I've got a question about that later on. But to put another way, in 2021, Illinois produced 652 million pounds of pumpkins. I got a comparison for that too. Your favorite sculpture in Millennium Park, Cloudgate, the bean?
Mm-hmm.
That's nearly 3,000 Cloudgate sculptures.
Damn. I love that you brought these comparisons because that was my first thought. I was just like, I'm gonna need you to explain this to me like I'm a third grader. I went to Bradley University in Peoria, Illinois, in Central Illinois for undergrad. And again, this is sort of where I started to largely see pumpkins, like pumpkin overload. And it's not the marketing, the pumpkin spice, the pumpkin flavor. You just see it felt like a lot of cribs in Peoria had like 6 or 7 or 8 pumpkins just out on the porch, out in the front lawn. And so I've always seen it more as a decoration than an actual food item. But it makes sense that they're produced there. Well, Simone, I think we got to start with maybe the most Chicago thing you tried, pumpkin spice malort. Yeah, I'm gonna let that soak in for people. Pumpkin spice malort. If y'all remember, we did a whole malort episode, and we didn't all have nice things to say about it.
Me least of all. I had maybe the least nice things to say about malort.
Two of your stories involved throwing up.
Yeah.
So, Simone, where can people find it? And, did you throw up?
Okay, just to spoiler alert, I did not throw up. So we're already ahead on that front. You can only find the pumpkin spice malort at CH Distillery, where Jeppson's makes malort, and that is in West Loop. It is a it was one of these things where like we walked in and there was another couple sitting next to us, and I was like shot of pumpkin spice malort, and they were like, I'm really curious to hear. We just had this. Like, I'm excited to see your reaction. And they were like, have you had malort before? And we were talking about that. And I was like, well, did you like the pumpkin spice malort? How did you find it? Was it better or worse than regular malort? And they said, you know what? It's funny because when we got it, we asked the couple sitting next to us the same question before you got here.
Reaction.
So it was this like really kind of beautiful communal moment of we're all trying to try this pumpkin spice malort out here. How is it going to treat us? Overall, I actually think it improves malort significantly. I think it improves the taste way more than I thought it would. I didn't think these flavors would go together, especially when you think of like sweet kind of pumpkin with that like grapefruity gasoline nonsense. Like, but it's actually the spice part of the pumpkin spice that I think works really well. It goes down a lot easier. That said, you still get that burn,
that aftertaste
that just sits there. I will admit I did not drink the whole shot. Given my past experience with malort, I don't know if it would have been different if I drank the whole shot. But my date drank the rest of it. Did not go to waste. I paired it with a toasted rice lager, though I think it would be really good if you ever had like a cream ale, like like something with horchata. Like I feel like that would be I feel like that could really slap. So I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised. So yeah, I think a nice, fun seasonal offering. If you've already pranked your friends with regular malort, maybe give this a shot.
I do agree. I feel like a cocktail where rum chata and pumpkin spice malort were two of the components might slap. For some reason, I feel like that might work together.
If anyone wants to give that a try, let us know, because I'm not going to do it.
Hi, this is David, the CEO of CityCast. Do you ever find yourself holding back on travel because you're afraid of a language gap? Well, mind the gap no longer, as long as you have Babbel. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app. Its 10 minutes lessons are quick and handcrafted to get you talking your new language in 3 weeks. So I was reminded in the Olympics how much I love French. I had spoken French as a kid, but it has deteriorated to nothing. But I thought I would love to take a trip back to France with my girlfriend, but I'm embarrassed because my French is at 0. And I thought, why don't I get on Babbel and revive my French? And it's been a joy for the past few weeks. I'd forgotten everything. I'd forgotten plurals. I'd forgotten articles, vocabulary. Mostly I'd just forgotten how to speak and how to listen. And Babbel has me back on track with lots of speaking and lots of listening, because that's how you get better at a language. So I've been working on time, for example. And there's this way in French where when you say 2:45, you don't say 2:45, you say 3 o'clock minus 15. So, je rentre à 3h moins le quart. I'm coming back at 2:45. Anyway, it's so much fun to speak. And don't take my word for it. There's studies from Yale, from Michigan State University that prove that Babbel works. So here's a special limited time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Jacoby, are you ready for another pumpkin fact? Speaking of pumpkin spice.
Dog, if you are this excited for something, I'm excited for it. So go ahead.
So, Jacoby, can you name all of the spices that go into pumpkin spice?
Cinnamon, nutmeg, and cardamom.
You got two. Cardamom is typically not in pumpkin spice as we know it, although it can be. But typically you would find cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, allspice, cloves, and mace too. This all comes, as no one will be shocked, this is all the product of colonialism. The Dutch had colonized the Spice Islands in what is now Indonesia. The Brits, obviously were in the Caribbean, which is where allspice comes from. And then when the Brits came to the Americas and found pumpkins, which are indigenous to the Americas, they added those spices plus sugar and cream to create kind of that sweet pumpkin that we know today. So it's sort of that particular flavor of pumpkin and pumpkin spice is a product of colonization.
I'm not shocked there at all. Funny enough, not the colonization part. When I did my grocery store haul, obviously all I had in this cart was pumpkin spice things, and the cashier asked me, he was like, "Man, you don't know nobody like no pumpkin." He was like, "Pumpkin spice is basically cinnamon and nutmeg and ginger. Pumpkin by itself is nasty. So you need all them spices really to prop it up."
I don't know about that. You can before the Brits came, it was you would use like chiles to spice it into a savory dish. And you can still kind of find that if you like in Mexican food, you can find maybe not specifically with pumpkin, but you can definitely find it with other types of squashes. And you definitely see like pepitas, right? Or pumpkin seeds that are spiced with chile and lime and salt and that kind of thing. So you mentioned that you went to the grocery store, picked up, we've all seen these like orange menaces of pumpkin spice. What's the spread that you got here? What did you get, Jacoby? Because I'm a little worried for you.
I have been avoiding the pumpkin spice aisle or section in the grocery store for the last 6 weeks. But like you said, we wanted to dive in. And so I've got a spread in front of me. I've got a pumpkin spice latte and pumpkin old-fashioned donut from Stan's. And then from Trader Joe's, I've got pumpkin spice pretzels, pumpkin spice cookies, pumpkin spice cereal bar, pumpkin spice pumpkin seeds, and a pumpkin muffin and some pumpkin soup. So I went all in. I grabbed a little bit of everything, but I'm going to start with Stan's. Because similar to how you described Jepson's and Malort, I do not like coffee. I've never finished a cup of coffee in my life. Anytime I've taken a sip of it, I've not enjoyed it. But if you've noticed throughout this conversation, I've been sipping on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie. Pumpkin spice latte, I get it. I see why people go crazy
You
for
see
it.
the light? Do you get it?
But I do enjoy it. I'm not gonna get it a bunch because the aftertaste of coffee and how it's gonna feel in my stomach in a while is probably not gonna be great. But I will say it's the best tasting coffee I've had to this point. Obviously, very limited sample size, but the best I've had to this point.
And it's worth noting, too, that on the website at chicago.citycast.fm, our newsletter editor, Sydney Madden, has compiled a list of spots where you can get pumpkin flavored drinks and fall flavored drinks that are not Starbucks. So if you want to skip the Starbucks PSL and go for something local, we got a list that you can find on our website.
The pumpkin spice old-fashioned donut is great. It's just sugar and sugar glaze. And so the pumpkin flavor is very low. The spices are kind of the star of the donut. I'm going to try this muffin next.
We got lots of good eating mouth sounds for you listeners. We know how much you love those.
The muffin is given ginger. It's heavy on the ginger. And I'm not liking it as much as the donut. We're going to try the cereal bar.
I just want the listeners to know that he is just going bite after bite. There's no palate cleansing that's happening here. Poor Jacoby's mouth is just going to be coated in pumpkin spice.
No, I'm going to drink a little water. I'm going to drink a little water. The cereal bar, yes, is tasting more like pumpkin. Let's try these pumpkin seeds.
You're snacking on those.
No, these is good.
I've never had sweet pumpkin seeds. That's so funny.
Yeah, they're so sweet and so good. Oh my God. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't expect this. This was towards the bottom of my list from expectation point. And now I'm gonna do the soup. Let's just take one little thing of the soup. I should get some water before this one.
Yeah, you should. No on the soup. That's a big no on the soup. Oh no, that's a big no.
All right, let's do this. From the bottom. The worst thing that I got, pumpkin spice soup. Leave it on the shelf, y'all. Leave it on the shelf. I'm going to go next with the muffin because it was too gingery. The texture of it was so good, though. So get them out of Trader Joe's if you like muffins. Shockingly, I'm going with the cereal bar next because it just was it probably had the best spice blend of them all, and I could actually taste a hint of the pumpkin. Then I have to go donut, the pumpkin old-fashioned donut, latte, pumpkin spice, pumpkin seeds for the win. But the seeds and the latte, two of the biggest shockers for me. I expected to like those probably the least. The fact that those are my top two was a bit of a shock. I'm going to finish this latte.
This actually leads, I think, really well into, now that we've tried a bunch more food, really well into our next pumpkin trivia question. You ready, Jacoby?
I'm snacking on these seeds. Do your thing.
In addition to harvesting the most pumpkins for jack-o'-lanterns and decorations, an Illinois plant is responsible for producing 85% of the world's canned pumpkin. Do you know where that plant is, and can you name that brand?
Pekin, Illinois. I'm going to say Pekin.
Okay.
This is a complete inside joke, only for my Bradley people. So Pekin, Illinois, and no, I don't know the brand.
You're actually not that far off. You're actually not, geographically, you're not that far. So it is the town of Morton, Illinois.
You have to pass Morton to go to get to Bradley. Come on, Morton. I see y'all.
Yes. So it's Morton, Illinois, and the brand is Libby's. Libby's canned pumpkin, which is the classic canned pumpkin that you will see in the grocery store. Libby's is now owned by Nestle, but they started as a canned meat company in Chicago. And then in the 1920s, they brought canning pumpkin into the fold. And it's actually the Libby's pumpkin pie recipe that was printed on the back of its can starting in 1929. That's kind of been the quintessential pumpkin pie recipe. It's sort of credited with rocketing pumpkin pie into American kitchens for the holidays because you didn't have to spend hours grinding pumpkin, right? Smashing it up and carving that pumpkin out.
Right.
And it became an easy thing for anybody in the kitchen to prepare. So my hot take, if I could make one, I almost kind of think like, between the fact that we're producing so many pumpkins and then like the pumpkin pie flavor that is sort of the quintessential pumpkin pie that we know and love was created by a Chicago company, I kind of wonder if like we should be blamed for the pumpkin spice craze. Like, is this our fault? Like, did we do this?
That's a really good point. And it doesn't feel, after learning all this trivia, right, it doesn't feel like we're trying to take credit for something that's not really ours, right?
No, we really aren't. We really aren't.
No.
But I don't know. I'm just connecting some dots here. And I just wonder, like, if Libby's hadn't printed that recipe and created the quintessential pumpkin pie recipe, would we have pumpkin spice as we know it today, like as a flavor in lattes and cookies, etc.? Do you think?
That's a good question. I guess I'm going to counter with a question. Do we have a sense of when the pumpkin spice craze took off? Like when this picked up, when it just became the produce of the month?
actually pumpkins for a long time were associated with like the Thanksgiving holiday. Pretty much since the inception of the concept of Thanksgiving, particularly in the 19th century, when that became, Abraham Lincoln declared it a national holiday. So also an Illinois president, we can mark that one on for Illinois too.
Come on. It's our fault,
y'all. But pumpkin spice kind of as its own flavor. I was reading kind of different accounts, but a lot of it was like a Starbucks thing. Like, as far as creating the pumpkin spice as a sort of pop culture phenomenon and a trend and this holiday thing that everyone expects every year outside of pumpkin pie, right? Outside of the table, I think that's when it kind of became this like commercialized thing. So that is a very, very recent development. So Chicago doesn't take credit for the pumpkin spice latte, for sure, I think. But I don't know. There's some other
of the craze.
There's some other stuff happening here that has strong Chicago. I don't know. I just food for thought,
Obviously, you got the traditional pumpkin pie. Shout out to Libby's. But Simone, you tried a twist out at Bang Bang Pie in Logan Square. How was that one?
Yeah, so Bang Bang Pie in Logan Square, again, shout out to our newsletter, Hey Chicago, for putting me onto this, because the minute I saw this in the newsletter, I was like, I have to try it. So Bang Bang Pie has a pumpkin goat cheese cheesecake, and it was delicious, Jacoby. I have nothing else to say about it. It was absolutely delicious. You're making a face right now. I don't understand why you're making this face. All three of those things are just beautiful, wonderful things. If you don't like goat cheese, I can't help you. Like, you're wrong. I'm sorry. Like, it's so good. It's so good. And it makes the cheesecake so rich. They also, on top, in addition to the pumpkin, right, which is kind of swirled in, they have these like candied pumpkin seeds and like cranberries. Just a delight. Probably the best pumpkin thing I'll taste all season. Jacoby, you came into this conversation a pumpkin and pumpkin spice skeptic.
I was.
How are you feeling about it now?
I lead this conversation putting more respect on pumpkin's name, right? Whether or not the pumpkin spice craze is in a dip, it'll come back. You think Halloween, you think of a pumpkin, right? You think Thanksgiving, like it's a part of this season in a different kind of way. And because of the many different ways that it's being used in food and celebration, I think we have to put a lot more respect on the pumpkin. I don't know if it has like year-round applicability for me, but I respect its domination over the late August through mid-November season a lot more now. Shout out to lead producer Simone Alisaya. Again, another shout out to our newsletter editor, Sydney Madden, for helping to inspire this conversation. I'm glad I did the haul, and I'm glad we sat down to talk about it, my friend.
Thanks, Jacoby.
Some good news. The Paralympics are continuing through the weekend in Paris, and we got some athletes competing today representing Chicago. In the women's wheelchair basketball quarterfinal between the U.S. and Great Britain, Emily Oberst and Itzy Gonzalez will be representing the land. Y'all, 20-year-old Gonzalez is a Chicago native and has been competing with the national team since she was 13 and in the 8th grade. I don't know what you was doing when you was in the 8th grade. I was playing Pontius Pilate in my school's retelling of the Passion of Christ. I wasn't competing for the national team, though. That's all I was trying to say. I'm going to talk to y'all bright and early tomorrow. Peace.
I'm not doing Pumpkin Spice Malort, though. I'm glad you did that one for the team. I'm glad you took that lick for the rest of us. Oh, I spilled it on spilled some muffin.
Are you still eating those seeds? Are you still eating seeds?
Dog, I'm racking this bag today.